Breaking news, Attorney General Jeff Sessions praising the Miami-Dade community along with Mayor Carlos Jimenez for complying with one aspect of President Trump's executive order to crack down on illegal immigration by refusing to fund sanctuary cities. Miami has backed away from being a sanctuary city, and we just heard Jeff Sessions say, quote, Miami is showing dedication to the rule of law. So it was just about, 5 days after the president's inauguration that the president issued an executive order denying federal grants to cities who choose not to comply with federal laws regarding deportation and illegal immigrants. But the one thing that might have been left out of the news conference, although it still is going on, is these cities. What do all 6 of these cities, recognizable with their skylines, have in common? They ignore Mr. Trump's policies, but if they continue to, there will be a high financial cost, $27 billion snatched away from them in federal grants. Mayors defending their sanctuary city status will essentially impose a defiance tax, and OpenTheBooks.com has put a number on it. $27 billion, which amounts to approximately $500 for every man, woman, and child in those cities. Adam Andrzejewski was the one who crunched the numbers to the dollar. How much would sanctuary cities lose if they failed to comply? He's founder and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. It's a nonprofit dedicated to keeping government transparent and accountable. And we're also joined by immigration and sanctuary city expert, attorney Christopher Lasch. Counselor, I'm going to start with you. You are hearing what Jeff Sessions is saying. He's rewarding Miami-Dade, saying we will continue to give you federal grants because you are complying with the rule of law. Where do you stand on this?
Well, what we heard from Attorney General Sessions is what we've heard from him time and again when he speaks on the subject of sanctuary cities. And one of his 2 drum beats is always about the rule of law. But what the Attorney General misses is that a lot of sanctuary cities are doing what they're doing in order to comply with the rule of law, and specifically in order to comply with the 4th Amendment to the Constitution. So Miami-Dade changed its policy in December of 2013, and it was in the vanguard of cities that decided to stop honoring what are called detainer requests to detain people for federal immigration officials. Just months after Miami-Dade changed its policy, the first of a string of federal court decisions came down, and that string has continued to this year with federal courts recently in Washington, California, Texas. The state Supreme Court in Massachusetts have all recognized that there are serious 4th Amendment concerns with what the Attorney General is asking these cities to do.
Before we get to Adam, what rights do you feel, Christopher, that immigrants who entered this country illegally and then who committed a crime, actually committed, not alleged, but committed a crime, what rights do you feel they have?
Well, the question here is how these cities are responding to the Attorney General.
But I get it, and
they should have their full panoply of rights under the Constitution, including 4th Amendment rights.
But they entered. Okay, let's just get to Adam for a second, and then I'll get back to that. Adam, tell us how you crunched these numbers and came down to this number of $500 per man, woman, and child in sanctuary cities, and who will get the most money yanked away.
So, Liz, thank you very much for your interest in our work. Thanks for having me on the program. This was a very, very difficult number to come up with. And so in January, when the president outlined his threat to cut funding from self-described sanctuary cities, we first had to determine how many of them there are. And we determined that there's 106 that violate this federal law that's in question, which is basically when you have a, quote, alien in custody, the Justice Department language on this, that you don't report that to federal authorities. And so then we took a look at all the agencies and entities that receive federal dollars, both directly and then on pass-through money through their state capitals. And there's 1,030 receiving agencies and entities, and they soaked up in the last fiscal year, 2016, nearly $27 billion. So it is a lot of money.
There are a lot of counties, though, not just in these states, but California obviously hit the most. But Indiana, interestingly enough, has some counties in it, right? I mean, and this is where Vice President Pence was the governor. But this is quite the carrot or the stick that the federal government is holding. Do you suspect that some of these sanctuary cities will give in, especially New York, for example, which needs federal grants for a lot of security here? We are a target here in Manhattan for terrorists.
So on a per-person basis in New York City, there's $900 per capita, per man, woman, and child at risk. And for instance, like in the city of Chicago, and this is why you see the lawsuit from Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, there's $5.3 billion of federal money in total every single year at risk in the city of Chicago. So the proxy fight on these lawsuits, like in Rahm's city of Chicago, is on the police grants. There was only $2.3 million of federal police grants into the city of Chicago. And to put that in perspective, the city of Chicago payroll is over $1 billion per year.
Right.
And last year, the city department is so mismanaged that they spent $143 million on overtime.
I mean, what are you going to do here?
His officer headcount's down 1,000 underneath his tenure, yet with the amount of overtime, they could have hired back 1,000 officers.
Okay.
That's how mismanaged the city is.
Let me get back to Chris. Chris, when certain cities who aren't sanctuary pull somebody over who ends up being an undocumented worker and who has committed a crime, why do they deserve anything? I think it's quite... I'm with a lot of people who say it's actually nice of this country to simply deport them.
Well, you know, Attorney General Sessions today made a nod to community policing, and that has actually been one of the prime motivators of why cities have gone in this direction. They have determined, like Miami-Dade did in December of 2013, that when you have immigration hooked onto the back end of your criminal justice system, that creates a corrupting influence throughout your criminal justice system. It encourages racial profiling on the front end, on the street level side, and it also deters people from reporting crimes, as a number of studies have shown. Here in Denver, crime reporting among the Latino population is down more than 10% since the Trump administration.
That is, of course, one of the arguments there. We've got to run, but we thank both of you for presenting both sides here.